You're listening to What She Said, a podcast for bloggers and creatives hosted by me, Lucy Sharif, a freelance journalist living in London. Each week I interview different women in blogging and the online world, getting their best blogging tips and advice, and a little bit of gossip too. Thanks for listening. Hello and welcome to another episode of What She Said. Happy Monday! I'm sorry that I say that every week, but I feel it needs to be said because Mondays are terrible. This week I chat to my friend and colleague, I guess, in the blogosphere, Wanderlust Chloe Gunning. She chatted about her interesting route into blogging from being a radio producer and working with Emma Bunton, right through to managing Rylan on the X Factor. Is that his name, Rylan? It's really awkward that I don't know that, but I keep wanting to call him Rylance, but that's stupid. We talk about selling yourself, faking it until you make it a little bit, and the crazy world of travel blogging. Chloe's really awesome, she's super honest, and she's just one of the loveliest human beings around. She's also very, very small. I don't know why that always makes me laugh, but she's so tiny, she's so adorable. But she's fierce. She's the perfect kind of candidate for that Shakespeare quote. Though she be but little, she be fierce, or whatever it is. Anyway, enjoy the show. Hi Chloe, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm getting over some jet lag and trying to get back to normal.
So for anybody who doesn't know who you are, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your blogging journey so far?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Chloe. I run the travel blog Wanderlust Chloe, which has been going for about 3 years come January, I think it is. Yeah. And I don't know how much you know, but my route in, I don't think any travel bloggers have a normal route in because there just isn't a kind of set journey. But I've actually had two other careers. I'm on my third one already, and maybe this won't be the last. Who knows?
They're really cool careers as well.
I know they're quite random. Yeah, very unrelated to travel. So I don't know how I've fallen into this one, but I actually started my dream when I was a little kid was to work in radio. So I used to go into London every now and then, and I'd see the Capital FM building, and I was an avid Capital listener. I loved pop music. I loved listening to the DJs. I used to send in requests. I was like a proper radio geek, wow. I guess.
Radio fangirl.
Yeah, totally, at the age of like 14. So when I went off to uni, I actually was starting to kind of dabble in radio. I'd made little shows at home. And then when I went to uni, I did student radio. I actually studied drama and literature, so it was, not totally related. But I started interning at radio stations, and then when I finished uni, I then got into the industry. And I worked in that for 5 years, producing a lot of shows, mainly at Heart FM, and worked with all sorts of people. I was producing the likes of Emma Bunton's shows, like Bruno Mars when he came in for a celebrity show, like a lot of big names, I guess. And I was the person in charge of making them sound good and writing scripts and giving them fun, topics to talk about. There's actually a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes when you're listening to the radio, but I think a lot of people are oblivious to it. So I did that for a while, and then I kind of sidestepped into the music industry because it was still related. I had a lot of contacts and did 2 years managing pop stars, I guess you'd say. One was a kind of 18-year-old who was just starting up, and he did quite well. And then another one, I actually worked on the X Factor for a year, managing the people that came off that, which was the weirdest job.
That must have been bizarre.
Yeah, totally. It was eye-opening. I think I actually didn't really know what I was doing when I got that job. I was how do I manage someone? What is this job? And I wound up, my main, a few of us were doing the job, and we got given a main act to manage. And mine was Rylan. So I think quite a household name today from his TV presenting, less than his singing. So yeah, my day-to-day life was kind of running around with him, sorting out interviews, managing lots of media things, perfume ranges, fashion deals, everything. but totally 24/7 is what I would say about that job. And I guess that's where the travel started to kick in. I actually took a big break. I took three and a half months off work. I quit my job. Everyone thought I was crazy. And I went off to Central America and had just like trip of a lifetime. I have to say, it was the break I needed. It, got my head straight again, gave myself time off. I didn't have any anyone breathing down my neck telling me I had to do anything. And I guess when I came back from that, I wanted to do it more. That was the big thing, was I love this life. How do I do this, every day? Is this a job? I don't know. And that was how the blogging started. I'd set a little blog before, but it wasn't very good. And I think when I came back from that trip, I was pretty serious about it.
Yeah. So it only took 3 months. So when you were away on your trip and you quit your job and you were like, holy crap, I'm so glad I'm not doing this job anymore.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably how quite a lot of us travel bloggers started out, to be honest. Did you just have one of those kind of journal style
Yes, I had
jobbies or blogger jobbies?
Yeah, it was blogger, and it was somehow I came up with the name Wanderlust Chloe already, which to this day
good.
I would probably change it if I could, but when you've just built something, it's kind of you, and I never thought it would be something I would go forward with, but it seemed to fit where I was when I was quitting my job. So I set up, I think it was wanderlustchloe.blogspot.com. Very catchy. And super basic, lots of photos, and basically for my friends and family, I guess, and to keep my brain whizzing a bit while I was away.
So even in that 3 months, when you came back, you already knew, okay, this could be a job. How can I make it a job?
Yeah.
How did you know that? Where did you, how did you start? What was the first steps that you took?
So when I came back, I think I had read some travel blogs before my travels. Obviously, you do research, but I went away completely on my own and was very scared about doing a big solo trip. So I definitely read travel blogs, but I don't think I realised that they were different to websites as much as I obviously understand it's a whole different industry now. And I started realising there were personalities behind them, that they were real people sharing their journeys. And I guess through my little kind of dabbling in blogging, I also realised that was something I might be able to do. When I came home, obviously I needed money. I moved back home for a little bit, and I freelanced for a friend's production company, and on the side of that I was spending many hours, in my evenings blogging, like many of us do. And I think I started to learn quite quickly that there was this whole business out there, and that although it might not necessarily be something I'd ever make money from, that it might be something that would help me travel more, and I'd learn more about traveling. I'd get to more interesting places, and I think my first steps probably to make it into more of a thing. Firstly, I moved to WordPress and set up a proper blog, which I rebranded this year a little bit and redesigned, but the former version. So I set that up, and then I started emailing kind of travel companies, tour operators, the likes of Trek America, Intrepid, companies I'd actually paid to travel with before, and that I'd loved their style, especially for people who travel on their own, like I did a lot. And gradually I just started to kind of make headway, I guess.
How did you know what to, because I think quite a lot of people, when they first start pitching, they literally don't know what they're supposed to be. I mean, now it feels so simple. You're like, I'll give you this, you give me this, boom, done. But at the beginning, you're like, what the hell do I do? How do I? And I mean, my initial pitch emails, you were just, I don't know, they were probably an essay, and at the bottom you're like, I don't understand what you've asked me for.
I think mine were the same. I have no idea how anyone ever bothered to respond. I think it was probably a lot of waffle. But I think one thing that I've always found useful was actually my weird way into the kind of travel blogger world was I was always marketing other people and learning. I had to send good emails when I was working on behalf of clients. And so I think I had a bit of that kind of knowledge of how to compose a decent email, which was selling yourself in some way. I mean, I was always selling other people, and suddenly I was like, right, put my marketing head on. How would I pitch myself to someone? So I don't think my emails were particularly coherent in some ways, because I don't think I knew what I wanted to get out of the relationship. But I think it definitely started to build a few relationships with clients and things. And I also went to networking events, just like, I know you went to a lot at the beginning. And I think those kind of things were quite intimidating to me, because I suddenly was realizing there was this huge like travel blogger world out there, and there were like big stars, and I was just this little tiny like.
And you literally are very small as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Chloe is a very small one.
I know, they couldn't even see me.
I remember talking to you at WTM last year when we were at that really weird Malaysia event.
We were like dancing on the stage.
Someone's wedding. It was so bizarre. And you were talking about the speed networking, and I think it was the day before I was on the speed networking last year, and I decided not to do it this year. And I was so nervous. And this was, I mean, this year was maybe my 5th WTM, or 4th or 5th WTM. I can't remember, 4th, I think.
You're a veteran.
Yeah, somehow, and yet somehow not very successful.
Not true at all.
But I remember being really nervous. So it was my first speed networking. And I was chatting to you because your first speed networking was the year before, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And you really, really reassured me, because I was so worried that nobody would turn up. Because for anyone that's listening, the speed networking at WTM, also WTM is World Travel Market. It's kind of the biggest event in a travel blogger's calendar, I guess, even though it's not for travel bloggers, it's for the entire travel industry. But most of us will go, book our press trips for the following year, or, you know, whatever. And also just catch up with our friends, because
it's big social, isn't it?
It's very social. And speed networking, they do it for a few different industries, but they, like, travel bloggers will be sat behind desks, and it's literally like speed dating, but brands will come to you. And people have varying success with it. I did get stuff out of it, a couple of bits last year. I didn't do it again this year because it wasn't really worth it for me.
Yeah.
But but I was so nervous, so nervous, and I still get so nervous every time I go to WTM.
Yeah, I don't think that changes though. I don't think anyone feels totally comfortable there.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you were doing something completely different this year, weren't you?
Yeah, I did a few different things. I mean, I had like a couple of days as a blogger trying to, you know, pitch, and I actually just tried to approach it a bit more casually this year. Rather than trawling the stands, which I've done before and had no success at all, I kind of thought, right, I'm going to use this to catch up with people that I already know, but that I've worked with before. So it was more like client relationships that I wanted to maintain, I think, and that took the pressure off, because I actually knew a lot of the people that I was meeting, which made it a lot less daunting than going into kind of a meeting with someone you'd never met and having to impress them in 5 minutes.
And actually, I think that's a really good tip, because not just for WTM, but for everything. I did the same thing this year, and it was much more relaxed, but also much more successful. Yeah. I think when it comes to pitching, because I know a lot of people listening to the podcast, I think pitching feels like it's a real dark art, and it's quite frightening. And you're really good at it. And I think, so in terms of kind of marketing yourself and selling yourself, you're really good at it. But I think it's important. You've mentioned a few times, it's a relationship. I think when you go to things like WTM and you feel like you're basically cold calling everyone, it's not actually very successful when you do that. No,
I think it is about being quite prepared. I started sending a few emails in, I mean, partly because I was away for quite a big chunk just before WTM again this year. So I started sending some of my emails in like September, October, even though the event's at the beginning of November, just to say, like, really looking forward to, you know, catching up. Are you at WTM? It would be great to set up a meeting. Because I think you do sometimes have to get in quite early. People's diaries get busy. And then, you know, you actually want to like feel mentally prepared for the day as well. So it's nice kind of planning in advance and figuring out where you'd like to travel next year and figuring out who you know in the industry that might be able to help you get there, I guess.
What's your process for pitching, going right back to the beginning when you were first starting out, before maybe even you had a media kit? What was your process? I mean, I know you mentioned that you kind of went to people that you'd used before, so kind of building authentic relationships with brands that you actually would use yourself.
I think that was a huge part of it. Like, some of the first emails I sent one was to Trek America, who I adore. I went on a trip with them when I was about 24, I think, and travelled around Mexico for 2 weeks. And it was, the eye-opening. I just booked a trip on my own kind of thing. None of my friends wanted to do the same kind of travels. They wanted to do like beaches for a week, and I wanted to go on a bit of an adventure. And I loved it. And so I think that was like my first port of call. And although I remember like they, emailed a marketing company that looked after Trek and then got passed on to someone else, and then the whole company changed, and you go through those moments where you're like, oh, I've just built up quite a nice relationship here. But, it did start to pay off. Like, I was on the radar, and then they invited me on their I Trek Here trip last summer in California. And I think I still feel to this day it's because I started as a fan of the brand. I loved it. I could see it fit with what I offer as a blogger and what I write about and who my kind of market is, I guess. And I could just see like the affiliation just worked, and I think they saw it as well, and they knew that I was a bit of a brand ambassador, away from blogging. It was just, I recommended them to all my friends and family and things. So the pitching process for me, I think it was about finding the companies I knew I could really fit with. There were a few that I would have just fire off emails to, but I think I was quite careful at the start.
Yeah. And how did that progress as you kind of gained more traction and started probably upping your game with your media kit and things like that?
Yeah, I guess building a media kit was one step. I've actually looked back at old ones, and they are hilarious because you'd shout about anything that's ever happened. It's a bit like, I looked back at an old CV that I made when I was 16 at school, and I had on there, regular babysitting work. As if like that's a massive skill. I'm really good at babysitting apparently. And I was thinking like, that's because I didn't have anything else to write on my CV then. And so I think it's the same with my media kit. At the beginning it was, featured on anyone's website if I've like left a comment or something. It's like, please endorse me. And then gradually, you start actually having good things to put on there, and you have a few accolades. I think
that's an awesome tip though. Because a lot of people, I don't think most of us, I looked back at some old media kits which were terrible, like mocked up in Canva, just awful. But some of those things that you shout about before you have something bigger, like it is important to find something to shout about, because it is about selling yourself, isn't it? So like saying you're featured on some random person's website, you're featured, it's all smoke and mirrors, isn't it?
Completely. I think one thing that I definitely learnt from my old careers was, I guess, a bit of the art of spin. And I think there is a bit of faking it until you make it. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think often the people who have a little bit of ingenuity with like being able to showcase what they offer, even if it's not like the biggest things, you might have like some very special skills that someone else doesn't have, or you might just, have a really personable nature or so. I don't know what it is.
I think you'll
always find something that you could shout about, but it's actually shouting about it and being proud of that. Some people wouldn't know that the skills are actually that good. But I think I definitely looked around a bit because I wasn't sure that blogging was something that would be a career. So I looked at travel writing. I contacted companies, seeing if I could write for them. I set up a blog profile on Huffington Post, which I think a lot of people have, and actually you can shout about being published on the Huffington Post, even though they will accept a lot of different types of, writing. It doesn't need to be kind of high-end journalism or anything. It's very much kind of blog style. And I think being able to share some of my kind of adventures on there definitely felt like something I could mention to other people when I was pitching. It's the first step, I guess.
Huffington Post is a funny one, isn't it? But it's quite controversial. I feel like people can get a bit sniffy about it because they don't pay their writers, or they don't pay a lot of that. So there is a bit of controversy about that, but I've heard it. I think it's a platform, isn't it? And it's a really well respected one. So I've seen it a lot featured in Huffington Post, and it does make a difference.
Definitely.
You're right. You've not got to find anything, but you have got to find the things that you're good at and shout about them.
Yeah. And I think, like these days, after a while I learnt about the Lonely Planet Pathfinder scheme, and that's actually like really, really helped me. They obviously have like this kind of blogger platform where you can register, build a profile, and then they do monthly shout outs, so you can enter your top 3 blog posts from the month, your top 3 Instagrams, your top 3 videos, whatever you've kind of been working on. And they pick their kind of, their editors pick their favourites from the blogging community. And I think that was something where I realised if you produce good content, it can be rewarded through that kind of system as well. And they started to notice what I was doing, and that's definitely led to kind of the work I'm doing with them now, which is, much bigger profile. I never expected that to happen either. But it's important. I think it's a good idea for bloggers to have a look at those kind of platforms that can help them build. It's not necessarily you're going to be paid for any of it. Sometimes it is just about building experience or building profile, but it's kind of how we get there.
That's a good tip. I'll link to them in the show notes. So I wanted to talk to you a bit about some of the other skills that you've learned along the way, because one of the things that you do is really awesome video content.
Yeah.
Did you know how to do that before you started blogging with your kind of production background?
No, but I think it probably came to me a little easier than someone who's never edited anything. Like I used to edit audio, as I edit podcasts and things like you're doing. And so I had a lot of kind of skills in that way, but actually visuals are a whole different ball game, and it's a lot to get your head around. I think I really enjoy making the videos. I find it's a challenge all the time. I think it's a lot of work, and I do not understand how people can put out daily vlogs and things, because I just think it's so much work. Like Fun for Louis vlogs his whole life every day of the year. I think he puts up a new video, and they're very highly, they're beautifully edited and got lots of personality and lots of adventures in there. But I'm like, how are you doing that and travelling full time? I don't know where you find the time.
No.
So video is obviously such a kind of important medium now, and they're saying, I don't know, 80% of our content in the next 5 years is going to be kind of video content. Like we're all moving in that direction. So I don't think I saw it as like I need to jump on the bandwagon, but I did already kind of start making videos a few years ago, really bad ones, and I've gradually like honed a few skills and learned how I like to produce them. I think there are quite a lot of different styles out there. I don't really vlog. I don't sit in my bedroom talking to a camera. I find that really uncomfortable. It's just not me. But I do like kind of showcasing the places that I've travelled to and like giving people a bit of insight into what it's like to be there, kind of right there and right now.
And that's something that's a really good add-on, I imagine, for your brands when you're working with them, to be able to sell the fact that you can create these beautiful travel videos as well as write about it and take pictures and all the rest of it.
I honestly think it's where most of the money I make now is probably coming through is because I can do video as well. I think, I wouldn't say a lot of the projects I do are like really, really well paid, but I'd say that the element that they will actively pay for every time is video, because they're getting something out of it. Especially, we've been, obviously I'm with Maka, who's also a travel blogger, and we look at sometimes doing packages together, and the fact he makes video as well is great. But the fact that we can both produce different videos, different angles, different views on a destination, like that kind of thing is great for a brand. They're getting lots of content out of us, and they can reuse that. They could potentially use that for years to come if they want to kind of showcase their region, their destination. And I think it's having those like tangible things that they have.
Yeah.
That's quite appealing.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we forget that our worth in a way. Like, you know, a brand will pay for writing. Well, they may not, but they will see worth in, you know, a lot of brands, a lot of tourist boards don't have an in-house video creation team and
so true.
writers on each destination. That's why they want to work with bloggers. So it's really good to be able to hone your skills in certain areas and be able to offer that as a package. And
definitely. I think it's nice being able to say, okay, if you hire me for this project, you get X number of blog posts, a video, all this social media. Like, it feels like you're giving them quite a well-rounded package. Like, it's a kind of 360-degree view of a destination. Like, they've got the live stuff, they've got the things that will live on for years as well. And yeah, I think that's kind of a great way for bloggers to kind of package up what they can offer.
Yeah, it's a good tip. Going back to the beginning of your blogging journey, up until actually, not necessarily the beginning, but what kind of stumbling blocks did you come across? Was there anything where you felt, oh God, I'm rubbish at this, I'm going to give up?
Yeah, I think, I think most bloggers will have a moment when they wonder if this is really a job. As in, can I make money from this? Is this something that will have longevity? And I definitely had wobbles just kind of mentally over, you know, people already thought I was a bit mad for jacking in a great job in the music industry. So I've quit that and gone traveling. And then I've set up a blog. Like, what is she doing now? Like, does she think this is life? And I think I sometimes definitely suffer from worrying what people think. And I mean, it's a classic, lots of girls do. But I definitely have had kind of stumbling blocks of like whether I had the confidence to push beyond it, and whether I could also block out the people who I thought might be critical of it. I think I needed to kind of be quite headstrong. And then I'd also say things like the techie side, I had no idea about building a website. And I think I still don't know a lot about the kind of back end. I think my biggest, like one of the best things I've ever done and paid for is finding a good web guy who I have confidence in, and when I get stuck on something, I'm just like, Fred, something's good again. Because actually, I think you learn that you've only got so many hours in the day, and you don't want to spend 8 hours on a forum trying to find the fix for something. Yeah. And I did that to start with, and I think I wasted so many hours when I should have probably just paid someone to come and help for a bit. But yeah, that. And then also, I'd definitely say I wish, like when I'd started, I wish I'd known more about SEO. I think, I don't know, most bloggers probably start because they have a passion for telling stories and, you know, creating content. They don't necessarily have a passion for finding out what Google wants you to write about putting it on page one. So yeah, I think a lot of us probably learn the hard way by writing a lot of good blogs, like quality content that no one will ever find.
Because your URL is 4177, which I found the other day.
Oh no.
What on earth was I thinking?
That classic.
It was terrible. So I just migrated my site to Squarespace, and in the process of it, when I was looking at all my old URLs, you know, all 400 of them.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what was I even thinking about with some of these? The keywords were in it for sure. I found one that was just Wanderlust.com/of.
I want to read that. I'm typing it in now.
I think I might have got rid of it. Just terrible. Yes, SEO is something that, and it's so simple. Actually, I won't even go into SEO because it's so boring for so many people. I don't find it boring, but yes.
I've listened to some of your other podcasts and I've had good SEO tips. So I think these podcasts are very useful.
So on that topic, what have you found the most useful? So you've talked about some of the things that you did, but I feel like quite a lot of it came from you and your own determination. Has there been anything that somebody else has told you, or a resource, or something that if you could tell a new blogger, hey, do this. Don't listen to this nonsense. Do this one thing.
I think, a couple of things. I think, firstly, I think it was probably Monica, the travel hack, or someone, I think it might have been her who, you know, she emphasizes like blogging as a business. And I think reading some of her blogs about blogging made me kind of much more savvy, and I've seen her talk as well, much more savvy to the fact that there is like a certain level of professionalism in the industry. I'd always been like reasonably professional, but I think you need to approach each kind of client and each job that you're thinking of doing as, you know, this is your business, and like, what do you want to get out of it? What does the client need to get out of it? And I think like looking at it much more seriously, it can seem like blogging's just like so much fun, and I think actually putting quite a business brain on, I've definitely learned to be more savvy and like understanding my worth as I've gone through this journey. And I think the kind of business brain is something I've definitely learned from other people. I think it's so important. I think one of my biggest bugbears is hearing, like, we've been on press trips with the PR clients, and them telling us about, you know, the horror stories of blogging. You know, they've booked bloggers and they just not turned up, or they've cancelled last minute, or they've not, you know, 2 years later they never produced any content, things like that.
That's
and
so
like,
awful.
I know, and you're just like, I'm sorry, like, I feel like I'm carrying guilt for other, you know, like the fact that the blogging industry could be looked on negatively, and it's really sad to hear when people have those stories.
And it does, and it affects us directly. Because I've definitely spoken to PRs who are like, oh yeah, or probably not PRs, but it's more like maybe small brands who are like, oh yeah, we did work with bloggers once, but she like never produced anything, or was a complete diva, or, you know, whatever, didn't do what we wanted, basically wasn't professional, and so we're never going to work with any bloggers again.
I think it's hard. I've actually had an email from a hotel I stayed at who said that to me because of the review I wrote. It's the only like big negative email I've ever had, and it hurt a lot actually to receive it, but I wrote quite an honest review, and it was all positive because I'd had a reasonably nice stay. But I just mentioned that they had quite a big dog that like literally jumped on me as soon as we arrived, and I found it quite like, whoa, I'm not a dog person. There's a dog on my face, basically. And so I included a little note about that in the review. And obviously, when they agreed a complimentary stay in exchange for a review. But obviously, you never say like it's going to be a 100% positive review. So you might have like one criticism, but everything else I said was pretty positive. Anyway, they sent me an email back saying, like something about it being like a bit of a misunderstanding, and that they'd never be working with bloggers again after their experience with me. And I was like, no, I was just honest. Like, seriously, you have a dog and it jumped on me, but apparently I wasn't supposed to include that in the review.
Well, in episode day 3 of Podmas, which is live at the moment, I think I was chatting to Lauren Elcroft about that kind of situation when you go on a press trip. And actually, you know, it's not even that. We've both been on, well, I've been on a press trip. I did a hotel review, and there was an element of the stay that I didn't like. Actually, there was quite a lot of it that I didn't like. So but I liked it, and I would have recommended it. I could find positives, and it definitely was a good hotel for the area if you were going to this place. Anyway, so I was super honest, but I told the person beforehand, and she wasn't very happy about it. No. But I mean, what I would 100% rather, and what we talked about in this episode, I'd rather piss off one person than piss off all my readers. Or, you know, imagine if one of your readers was terrified of dogs and went to that hotel and that happened. No. They're just not gonna, even though it's not your fault, because if you were a dog person, that might not fuss you. If you hadn't have included that, they might have been like, well, I don't trust Chloe now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's very easy to kind of miss that bit of authenticity in favour of like keeping everyone happy. And I mean, my blogs generally are very positive, happy space, and I like to keep it that way, but I will have moments where I think you need to show a bit of balance. And I think, you know, if there is something awful, you need to say it. Like, quite often I'll just say, like, the food was nothing special, but the views are amazing. Like, I think, you know, people need to know these things, but I don't tend to dwell on them. I'm much more on the kind of positive side. You know, you can usually find a lot of positives in everything you do. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's not, I don't think anyone really wants to read a big old negative blog. And also, I don't think most of us want to write it.
No, it's a depressing moment to do that.
Exactly. I normally save all my shouty moments for Twitter.
Yeah, I like those. I really enjoy those. And your Instagram stories.
Yes, I do shout on Instagram stories sometimes. I wanted to ask a little bit about social media and the social media that you found the most useful, and any tips that you have, because you've got a really strong presence across the board really in social media, but probably particularly on Instagram. Yeah,
I mean, I always loved Instagram for like the kind of creative, you know, the inspiration, the travel inspiration. I use it a lot for travel inspiration myself, like finding new places to go. When I get somewhere, I look at like the tags and see where people have eaten and see what food they've posted and things like that. I like kind of using it as a bit of a research tool. So I guess Instagram's always been like the one I focused on, but I don't like it that much at the moment. I mean, everyone's finding that there are kind of algorithm changes and I think a bit of the fun's gone. It's become a bit too much business and less just about like sharing what you're doing. And I think even with the stories, I still try to keep mine pretty live and in the moment and unfiltered. But a lot of people are now curating their Instagram stories with beautiful images all the way through. And I'm sad at that, because I think it was the one part of Instagram that was still quite real and authentic. So I would have said Instagram, but I don't know if it's my favourite. I'm actually really enjoying Twitter again at the moment. I think, like you say, you can have a bit of a shout on there, but you can also have like a good old conversation. Like people reply and talk to you, whereas on Instagram they might go, "What a beautiful place," or "Wow, I'd love to visit." I think on Twitter you get kind of real chit chat going, which is fun. And I'm moving back to Twitter a bit at the moment. I don't think it's probably the one that's going to live the longest, but I think it's a bit more fun right now.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think you have to, with social media, I mean, I sort of don't necessarily think I want to invest in any social media. I just want to spend my time on the places that make me feel good. I still love Instagram, but I also love Twitter. I really don't like Facebook. So I've always had a real hate relationship with Facebook, and the only reason I have a blog page is so that I can have my Instagram business account. Yeah. But I've now got my Facebook group for the podcast, which is actually really, really awesome. It's tiny and it's really lovely. But it's not about Facebook for me. So I just don't think there's any point in spending time on a platform that doesn't make you feel good. No,
I think I see Facebook. I used to enjoy Facebook for kind of personal use, and then obviously like you set up your blog page and then it becomes much more about work. So if I go onto Facebook now, even just for my personal, you know, to see my own stuff, I associate it quite a lot with work now, and it I don't know, it feels more labour intensive for some reason, whereas Twitter and Instagram are just a lot more fun.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, each to their own, I guess. Absolutely. Everyone's got their favourite.
Yeah. It probably feels like quite a good place to end it. Could you tell everybody where to find you online, and just let us know what you're up to?
Yes. So my blog is wanderlustchloe.com, and my social media is all at wanderlustchloe. What am I up to right now? Well, it's my birthday next week.
Yes.
So I am very much at home, probably in my pajamas, eating a lot of chocolate and watching like Christmas movies over the next few weeks. I've just literally got back from Barbados a few days ago, and I'm ready for a really, really good break and to have some family time and, you know, headspace and things. So might go a bit quiet on the blogging front, but I think everyone needs to have a bit of, you know, their own time as well.
Absolutely. Where are you off to next?
So January, I think Mexico and maybe Canada. And Glasgow.
Oh, dreamy.
You just to throw in another one. But yeah, all of it up in the air. But yeah, that should be kind of January, February time.
Well, we'll make sure we follow along. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast, Chloe.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for listening to What She Said. If you liked this episode or any of the other episodes, then please think about leaving me a rating and a review on iTunes, because it really helps get the show out to other awesome creators like you, and it's a little bit of an ego boost for me too. If you want to connect with me, you can find me over on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, everywhere at Wanderlust blog, or just head over to my blog, wanderlust.com, which is also where you can find the show notes for every single episode too. I love hearing what you think about the show, if it's good, and I try to reply to each and every one of you. Thanks for listening, and come back again next week.